Here's how it really went. No PR polish, no slow piano under my words, just the memory I carry in my hands. Harbor City was chewing on itself that afternoon, horns trying to outsing sirens, and I was weaving my beat-up mountain bike through a four-way mess when I saw the sedan sitting crooked in the box hazards, winking like a bad joke. Then I saw it. A hand pressed to the tinted glass sliding down, and a face gone gray, mouthing one word I've known since my EMT classes ran out of tuition help. I don't wait for permission to be decent. I banged the window, yanked the handle, yelled for someone to call 911. People stared, some filmed, nobody moved. You know what I mean? The kind of crowd that gathers fast and helps slow. I flipped my bike, shoved the frame up, brought it down hard. First hit, spidered, second hit, rained safety glass across leather that smelled like money. I reached in, unlocked, eased him out. His name came later. Right then, he was just a man with a bird-wing pulse and lips going blue. "I've got you," I told him, and put my hands where they belonged. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Counting kept the fear from eating my lungs. A teenage skater finally muttered, "Calling," and that tiny word steadied me more than the crowd's silence ever could. Sirens grew teeth. A paramedic with an orange beard slid in beside me, took over with the choreography of people who do this for a living, and told me the sentence that still sits right behind my ribs. "You kept him here. Not hero, not savior. Just you kept him here." They closed the doors. The crowd dissolved like spilled soda, and I was left with glass in my hair, a dent in my bike, and 3 courthouse deliveries with rent due tomorrow. Yeah, that happened. Next morning, the news said a Harbor City executive had a cardiac event downtown and was stable after surgery. No names. Fine by me. I'm not allergic to credit. I just can't pay bills with applause. 3 days later, mid-shift at the diner, a woman in a pencil skirt and sneakers slid into my booth like she belonged in every room. "Tessa Brooks," she asked. "I'm Nina. My boss is looking for the person who broke his window and saved his life." I glanced at the coffee pot, as if it might have advice. "Am I in trouble?" "Opposite," she said, handing me a card. "He wants to thank you." Quietly. Quietly matters when money breathes nearby. We met in a small conference room with floor-to-ceiling glass that made the city look like a model. He was there in a sweater instead of armor color back in his face, and he said, "I'm Mason. Not Mr. Rourke, not the name on the building. Mason." "You don't have to thank me," I told him. A stranger couldn't breathe. The world should stop for that. He looked out the window like the view might confess something. "It didn't stop," he said softly. "But you did. People think gratitude is flowers. Sometimes it's a folder." He slid one across the table. "Community initiatives, fair pay that didn't make my stomach hurt, benefits for me. And whoever I claim as my person, tuition help." I laughed once, short and rude, because sometimes hope arrives dressed like a trick. "I'm a bike courier who didn't finish school. Your team doesn't need me." He tilted his head. "You ran a scene, coordinated bystanders, made triage calls without theatrics. We need that mind on this side of the table." I pictured Aunt Joe's pill bottles lined up like white flags. 3-month trial, I said. "I keep my other job until I trust this." "No press. I'm not your mascot." He nodded like he'd decided to agree before I opened my mouth. "Deal, and we'll replace your bike." "Keep the dent," I told him. It reminds me I was brave. First morning badging into Rourke Dynamics, the lobby smelled like lemon and new chances. Nina walked me onto 14 sunlight poured through glass, and Helena from Community Initiatives shook my hand with both of hers. "We design help that actually helps," she said. "We try." At my desk was a plant someone had already watered. It sounds small. It was not. 2 weeks in, I pitched a Riverside health fair. Pressure cuffs, A1C checks, flu shots, kid corner translators, transit vouchers home. Money makes things easier. It doesn't make them simple. Permits drag volunteers bail free can feel like a trap. I begged a clinic for loaner cuffs charmed barbers into being town criers, soothed a guy who thought our tents meant the block was changing faster than rent. Mason stopped by sometimes, no parade, just, "What do you need?" And he'd text and it would happen. Then he'd vanish like a runner grabbing water at mile 12. The fair started cold and warmed into the kind of afternoon that makes even Harbor City look gentle. We checked in grandmothers and drywallers and kids with cereal on their shirts. I taught a teen how to take her mom's pressure without squeezing the life out of the artery. We caught 2 folks in hypertensive crisis and got them to the ER. A man cried because someone finally told him his blood sugar had a number and a plan. A little girl made me a rubber band bracelet and told me I looked official, which is a bigger word than she knew. At dusk, we tallied. 240 screened 60 solid referrals, volunteers exhausted and laughing. Helena hugged me. "This was yours. Own it." I would love to stop there and call it a day. But rooms you weren't invited into come with drafts you can't see until your papers blow off the table. A week later, legal sent a memo about optics and procurement alignment, and Whispers learned my name. Jake from Data leaned over my cube and said, "Must be nice having a direct line to the boss." "You mean my Google Calendar?" I asked. He smirked. "You know what I mean." Then the Harbor Ledger ran a headline that could imply 5 wrong things at once. Rourke programs expand under new coordinator, with ties to CEO. Ties could mean we once tied our shoes on the same street. It meant gossip. The board called a meeting. I went to Aunt Jo, who stirred beans like a steady heartbeat, and said, "Water boils whether you watch it or not. Do your work. Keep receipts. Let them bring their questions to the facts." So I did something most folks don't. I asked for more scrutiny. I set a meeting with HR and dropped a binder on the table. Independent evaluation. External. If my programs don't hold up, reassign me. If they do, I want a statement that performance outranks perception. Mark from HR blinked, then smiled with the tired part of his eyes. Very few people ask for more scrutiny. I'm not most people, I said, and meant it like a prayer. The boardroom smelled like polished wood and complicated kindness. 12 chairs, 1 long table, and Victor Lang with the jaw that snaps shut on other people's sentences. "We are a technology company, Ms. Brooks, not a neighborhood clinic," he said. "Why the spend and why now?" I let my hands sit where they could see the tiny white commas of healed glass cuts. "Because some neighbors were invisible to people like us," I said. "Because the right decision doesn't always arrive on the right timeline. Because if we can close a gap and don't, that's not neutral. That's harm." He adjusted his cuff. "Your relationship with Mr. Rourke. How should the public understand it?" The room leaned. I breathed until it burned. I broke his window. He opened a door. "He's my boss and a human being who doesn't want our work reduced to gossip. If you need to judge something, judge outcomes." Mason had waited like a man who knows when silence holds more power than speeches. Then he slid the consultant's report across the table. "Cost per person served is 19% below the regional average," he said quietly. "Referral follow-through double the city clinic baseline. Employee volunteer hours up 31%. 3 partner physicians say our screening caught disease before the ER. If this isn't ROI, we need to redefine the R. They voted to sustain the programs, add a firewall so I don't approve budgets he signs and review again in 6 months. Not a parade, but facts beating rumor by decision. When the room emptied, Victor paused beside me with a smile that didn't touch the eyes. "Don't confuse gratitude with leverage," he said. I stepped closer than polite and smiled back warm enough to sting. "Don't confuse optics with ethics," I said. His mouth twitched. He didn't expect the courier to speak boardroom. "You want the twist?" It found us fast. Someone leaked a photo of me and Mason at a 24-hour diner after we finished inventory at the donation warehouse, hoodies and pie and bad lighting. Caption did the heavy lifting. Community or company romance comments split the world the way it likes to split. Neat and ugly. Half said I was sleeping my way to a budget. Half said, "Let a girl eat pie." Nina texted one word. Breathe. We didn't post a selfie. We posted sign-ups for the next Riverside Fair and a link to free CPR classes because I'm done with circles of people who only watch. My dented bike hangs on my wall now like art. It reminds me that sometimes the only tool you have is the one you're already standing on. So that's where I'm at. I badge in, I build the kind of help I wish younger me could have found. I keep every receipt I push back when the push is just noise. I'm still the girl who broke a window because a stranger was dying. And I'm becoming the woman who breaks the kind of windows you only see once you're inside the room. If you were at that intersection, do you break the glass or wait for better shoes to show up? If you sat at that board table, do you vote outcomes or optics? And if you've ever been underestimated on sight, how did you hold your center when the room tried to shrink you? Drop your take below. Tell me what feels right, what feels wrong, what you'd do different, or tell me about the time you had to be brave before anyone clapped.